morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Getting Able Ready presentation. This is made possible through funding from the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities as part of the Financial Wellness Project in Illinois. Thank you for joining us today. Next slide. This is Lori Schaller, and in listening to today's webinar, the audio for today's meeting can be accessed using computer audio or by calling in by phone. If you select computer audio, please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. If you do not have sound capabilities on your computer or prefer to listen by phone, please dial in 1-929-205-6099, and the meeting code is 829-7603-5405. Next. Real-time captioning is provided during this webinar. The captions can be found by clicking on the CC button in your Zoom controls at the bottom of the screen. If you do not see the captions after clicking the button, please alert the host via the chat box, and you may also view captions in your browser at streamtext.net/player event equals NDI2. Next slide. Please use the Q&A box to submit any questions you have during the webinar, and we will direct them accordingly. If your question is not answered during the webinar, or you are listening by phone and not logged in, you may email me at lschaller@ndi-inc.org. Next slide. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box to send a message to the NDI host, or you may email KAUCHENBACH@ndi-inc.org. Please note this webinar is being recorded and the materials will be placed on the following websites, so both at the National Disability Institute and at the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities. Next slide. So here at National Disability Institute, we envision a society in which people with disabilities have the same opportunities to achieve financial stability and independence as people without disabilities. In our mission, we collaborate and innovate to build a better financial future for people with disabilities and their families. And you can see our website at www.nationaldisabilityinstitute.org. Next slide. So again, this is presented as part of our Financial Wellness for People with Disabilities initiative in partnership with the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities. And before we go forward, we would like to pose some polling questions just to see what you are aware of in terms of Abel accounts. And we will ask the same questions again just to demonstrate to our funder that people have learned something new about Abel accounts and getting Abel ready as part of today's presentation. Katie, could you please post those polling questions? So question number 1, How much do you know about what an ABLE account is? I don't know anything about this. I know a little about this. I know a lot about this. Question 2. Do you know how to open an ABLE account? I don't know anything about this. I know a little about this, or I know a lot about this. Question 3. Do you know what funds in an ABLE account can be used for? I don't know anything about this. I know a little about this, or I know a lot about this. Thank you, Katie. If you could close the polling questions now. And we'd like to move forward and introduce to you Marielle. Next slide, Katie. So please, I'd like to introduce Marielle Hammer, Associate Director of Program and Policy at Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities. Thank you for joining us today, Marielle.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you to everyone who has joined this very important webinar today. Again, my name is Marielle Hamer, and I'm the Associate Director of Program and Policy for the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities. The mission of the Illinois Council on DD, also known as the Council, is to help lead change in Illinois so all people with intellectual and developmental disabilities exercise their right to equal opportunity and freedom. State councils on developmental disabilities are federally funded, self-governing organizations charged with identifying the most pressing needs of people with developmental disabilities in their state or territory. So there are 56 DD councils total. And so I represent the DD Council that is here in Illinois. So councils are committed to advancing public policy and systems change that help individuals gain more control over their lives. So the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities works to also address identified needs by conducting advocacy, systems change, and capacity building efforts that promote self-determination, integration, and inclusion. I want to take this time to thank the National Disability Institute for all they are doing to provide information and resources and financial empowerment for people with developmental disabilities here in Illinois. And with that said, I will hand this back over. Thank you.
Thank you, Marielle. Next slide. So today's agenda includes what is ABLE. We would like to highlight the Illinois ABLE account and basic information, ABLE Beyond Illinois, Illinois ABLE news and updates, and offer an opportunity for you, our audience, to ask questions and we can provide answers. Next slide. I would like to introduce J.J. Hanley, Director of Illinois ABLE. Thank you for joining us today, J.J. Please continue.
Thank you so much, Lori. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Marielle, and all the folks for joining us today. I'm really excited to be with you to talk with you about Illinois ABLE specifically. And ABLE accounts more generally. There are only a very few differences between things that go on with Illinois ABLE accounts that might be different from ABLE accounts nationwide. But we will be focusing today on the Illinois ABLE plan, and I'll qualify it where needed. So achieving a better life experience. Next slide. And before I get started, I want to, for those who are able to see the photographs on the slides, I want to point out that what you're seeing are images of actual ABLE account owners who live in Illinois. We are very proud to feature the faces of Illinois ABLE account owners throughout this presentation and soon on our website. You will see the diversity of all types of disability, of age, of ethnicity, of disability type. So I'm excited to share that with those of you. Right now, we're seeing an image of a young man who has Down syndrome, who is making a purchase at a local coffee shop in his neighborhood. What is an ABLE account? ABLE stands for Achieving, B, Better, L, Life, E, Experience. ABLE accounts are financial accounts that eligible people with disabilities can own while preserving benefits like SSI, SSDI, Medicaid, Medicare, FAFSA, HUD, and SNAP. ABLE accounts are used to save and invest money, to build independence, and to maintain or improve quality of life. Next slide. The ABLE accounts are possible because of the Stephen Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience Act. In 2014, both chambers of the U.S. Congress passed unanimously the ABLE Act, which amended the Internal Revenue Code. So note that the Internal Revenue Code, the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, this whole program falls under the Department of the Treasury, not under federal agencies such as the Social Security Administration or Medicaid. And that's an important difference about ABLE accounts. So the Act amended the Internal Revenue Code to include tax-exempt ABLE accounts for individuals with disabilities. It's code IRC 529A. It was signed into law in December 2014, so 5.5 years ago. And then the Illinois General Assembly passed enabling legislation that allowed Illinois to have and offer ABLE accounts to the public. That happened in 2015. And then Illinois ABLE launched in January of 2017. So our plan is about 3 and a bit years old. Currently, there are 42 states plus the District of Columbia, so 43 entities that administer or offer ABLE plans. Some are available only to residents of a state. Some are available across the nation to anyone, no matter where you live. Illinois ABLE is one of the plans that is available to account owners no matter where you live, as long as you are eligible. Next slide. Why was ABLE fought for by disability advocates? This is, to me, one of the most important things about ABLE. The Americans with Disabilities Act has a clause in it that says, to ensure equality of opportunity, full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency for and by people with disabilities. That's the Americans with Disabilities Act that passed in 1990. We'll be celebrating its 30th birthday in July. So that's great, economic self-sufficiency. Yeah, I think we'd all agree that at least some economic self-sufficiency is an essential part of having full participation, accessing opportunity, and living independently or in a supported independent living situation. However, until ABLE accounts arrived, our public benefit system made the real experience very different from the promise of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Before ABLE, the benefits caps created chronic financial instability. Anybody who is experienced with SSI knows you go above $2,000, your benefits are suspended. It's very hard to build financial wellness when you can only have assets under $2,000. Before ABLE, people with disabilities had little to no incentive to work. What would you do with the money if you earned it? Where would you put it? These asset caps, if you're on SSI, caused you to say, well, why would I work? I have nowhere that I can put the funds that I earn. Before ABLE, only those with means had a pathway to achieve the promise of the Americans with Disabilities Act, primarily through special needs trusts. Next slide. Why do people with disabilities open Illinois ABLE accounts then? I think just that whole idea that hopefully the previous slide helped us see that, wow, this is a shift. ABLE accounts may help us sort of shift the picture, change the paradigm for people with disabilities. So many people open accounts to build savings and still preserve their benefits, those SSI, SSDI, and Medicaid benefits and more. People open Illinois ABLE accounts to have a way to save those earnings. They have a place to put them without jeopardizing, if they're on SSI, the $2,000 asset cap. People open Illinois ABLE accounts to put in gift money, small inheritances, and small insurance settlements. People open Illinois ABLE accounts because there's no Medicaid asset cap. You don't have to worry about other Medicaid asset caps if you have an Illinois ABLE account. People open them because they're an alternative to or a convenient add-on to special needs or pooled trusts. People open Illinois ABLE accounts to get tax-free earnings and tax-free withdrawals from the account. That's a great incentivizer for those who are in a tax-paying mode. People open Illinois ABLE accounts because they can roll over their 529 college savings account if they had one, and it was determined that they aren't going to use them. People open Illinois ABLE accounts because it has easy investment and checking options. And Illinois residents, Illinois taxpayers open Illinois ABLE accounts or assist others to do so because they can deduct their contributions into any Illinois ABLE account from their Illinois state income taxes. And people open Illinois ABLE accounts because the person with the disability is always the owner of the account. And that is a real signal for independence that people with disabilities in our community have not had until ABLE accounts arrived. I just want to clarify that when I use the words they or you, I'm really referring to the account owner, but we're going to talk about those who can open accounts on behalf of account owners. But when I say you, or if I say they, we're talking about the account owners or those who support them to have an ABLE account. Next slide. Who is eligible to own an Illinois ABLE account or any ABLE account? But again, we focus on Illinois. One, the onset of the disability began before the person, the account owner, turned age 26. Doesn't have to be the diagnosis, does not have to be when the account is opened. You can open it after age 26. The onset of your disability, the disability of the account owner, needs to have occurred prior to turning age 26. The other factor in eligibility is the account owner either receives or qualifies to receive Social Security disability benefits such as SSI, SSDI. In other words, the account owner meets the standards and the definition put forth by the Social Security Administration of eligibility for benefits. Does the account owner have to be receiving benefits? Absolutely not. It's just a requirement. It's a way to define eligibility. Many folks own Illinois ABLE accounts who are not actually receiving benefits, but would qualify to do so were they to apply. In fact, many families of younger children with disabilities, they haven't even begun to enter that benefit system, and so they're setting up accounts using the third bullet point of eligibility, which if you have onset before 26 and you're not receiving Social Security disability benefits, you need to have a letter, a certification from a licensed physician, either an MD or a DO, a doctor of osteopathy, that indicates that the condition and the onset prior to age 26 and the level of significance meets the Social Security Administration's definition for disability. I, as a parent advocate, would like to see it broadened to meet the definition of disability that, according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, but I think we're a little ways off from that. Next slide. A few ABLE account basics for you. 250,000 approximately Illinoisans with disabilities are eligible to own ABLE accounts. That's a big number, 250,000 of us. And I want to describe, I think I may have failed to describe some of the pictures earlier. I apologize to those who can't see the pictures. My apologies. I'll describe this one. This is of a young man who has Down syndrome, who's working on his homework with his mother, looking over his shoulder and smiling. His mom says, "It was so easy to set up an Illinois Able account. It took just 15 minutes. I tell all my friends to set one up for their children." Nancy is a parent and an authorized individual on her son's Illinois Able account. Next slide. So who can open the Illinois Able account? We talked about your eligibility. We talked about who can own one. We talked about the benefits of it. Now we're going to talk about who can actually open the Illinois Able account. First, the account owner, him or herself. If you, the account owner, are an eligible adult and you are not under guardianship, you can open your Illinois Able account yourself. If you are a parent or a guardian of a minor, or a parent, a guardian, or have power of attorney for an eligible adult, you can serve as an authorized individual. That's what we call the authorized legal representative, to open and manage the account for the account owner. The individual with this disability is always the account owner and beneficiary. However, in some cases, the individual may not feel comfortable managing the account, him or herself, or maybe under guardianship if he's an adult and will need to have an authorized individual, somebody who has the authority to transact in financial matters for the individual, open the account on the account owner's behalf. In order to serve as an authorized individual, you complete the application process and will be asked to provide proof of guardianship of the person or the estate, or a copy of the individual, the account owner's birth certificate, or have a power of attorney signed by the account owner and notarized by the account owner that shows that you have been given the authority to open and manage the account. People have asked, can a rep payee open and manage the account on behalf of the account owner? Currently, we recommend that it is only done so if the rep payee is also serving in one of the capacities of parent, guardian of a minor, parent, guardian, or power of attorney for an eligible adult. The reason for this is that we states are working to, our state, Illinois, we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, we are working to change the administrative rules for ABLE here in Illinois to make it possible for organizational representative payees to open accounts. But until that happens, it's probably a better idea to avoid doing that until it's really written into our code. Next slide. So a couple of fundamentals, Illinois ABLE fundamentals. $15,000 is the aggregate annual account contribution allowed from all sources, no matter where they come from, and we'll talk about where they can come from shortly. Working account owners can contribute additional money above the $15,000 aggregate annual limit. That additional amount is the lesser of gross earnings up to the United States Health and Human Services, HHS, federal poverty guidelines for the previous calendar year. Other fundamentals, one account per individual nationwide. If I own an Illinois ABLE account, I may not own an Ohio Stable account or a Virginia ABLE Now account. Same with the other states. So if you have an account in another state and you're interested in rolling over into the Illinois ABLE plan, you absolutely can do that. Just contact customer service. They'll walk you through the process. You can roll over from the Ohio plan or the Virginia plan or another state's plan into the Illinois ABLE account very easily, but you can only have one account per account owner nationwide. Any individual can own an Illinois ABLE account no matter where they live. You can live in California and own an Illinois ABLE account. You can live in Illinois, Wisconsin, New York, and own an Illinois ABLE account. Maximum total balance permitted in an Illinois ABLE account is $450,000. It'll take us a while with $15,000 going in per year, maybe a little bit more, plus how folks are using the accounts to get to those $450,000 maxes, but it's great to know that our accounts can grow that large. There are no withdrawal limits of any kind and no rules around withdrawals other than that they be for qualified disability expenses. Next slide. So account contributions in an Illinois ABLE account can come from almost any source. And on this slide, you'll see a young man, another face of Illinois ABLE. His name is Michael. He lives outside of Springfield. And Michael is a young adult with a disability who owns an Illinois ABLE account. Where can those contributions come from? Money gifts from family, friends, third parties, paychecks. You can automatically have a payroll debit option right into the account owner's ABLE account. Small inheritances, insurance settlements, a rollover from a 529 college savings plan, distributions from a special needs or pooled trust, a fundraiser. And the last one says Social Security Administration benefits. I'm going to just put a little caveat on that. Lori and I have been having some discussions about it, and I want to flag it for further discussion a little further on if we have time. Next slide. The next slide talks about what kinds of investment options there are for account owners with their Illinois ABLE account. On this slide, you'll see there are 6 different pie charts, and each pie chart is broken up into 2 different colors that represent the apportionment of the underlying funds in each of these investment option types. So Illinois ABLE offers 6 high-quality, low-cost investment options with an option to change those options, change how you allocate your funds twice per year. There's aggressive, where 90% of the investment option is invested in low-cost, high-quality, passively managed index funds, and 10% is invested in bonds, high-quality bonds. There's moderately aggressive, which has a slightly lower percentage of equities and a higher percentage of bonds. There's growth, which provides an even smaller percentage of equities and a even larger percentage of bonds. There's moderate, greater percentage of bonds, lower percentage of equities. And moderately conservative, which introduces a Sallie Mae savings account, which is really a cash account, larger percentage of bonds and smaller percentage of equities. And then finally, the conservative option, which is primarily cash in that Sallie Mae account, with a tiny percentage, 10% in equities and a smaller percentage as well in high quality bonds. The providers of the underlying funds that are represented in these investment account options are BlackRock, Vanguard, and Charles Schwab. Next slide. In addition to the 6 investment options provided by Illinois ABLE is a very popular checking account option offered to you by Fifth Third Bank. On the slide, there is an image of a debit card with the numbers that are very common that we all are familiar with when we're using a debit card. The Fifth Third Bank checking account option provides a debit card, unlimited check writing, access to 50,000 plus ATMs across the country, and there are no overdraft fees, and the Fifth Third checking account option is FDIC insured up to $250,000. Next slide. I should mention before we talk about what things can be spent on, some folks have said, well, can I put the funds in, do I have to put them only in the checking account, or can they go into some investment and some in the checking? Absolutely, you can spread your investments, you can spread your funds out, or your deposits or contributions out across several investment options or a checking account option. It all depends on what it is that what your plans are for your financial wellness. I know that Michael shared a sheet called What Type of Investor Are You? Recommend reading it. learning from it, understanding things like what is risk, what is my risk tolerance, what is my timeline, to help you determine how you want to apportion the funds that you put into your Illinois ABLE account. So the slide we're on now asks what can funds in the Illinois ABLE account be spent on? This is a bit of a lengthy slide. I guess I'll go ahead and read it. I'm aware of the time. So things like education, food, housing, transportation, employment training and job coaching, assistive technology, personal support services, healthcare, prevention and wellness, financial management, administrative services, legal fees, oversight and monitoring, funeral and burial expenses. That's a lengthy list, but that's not all. It isn't exclusive. I think what's most important is what I'm going to read next, and many of you can see this, which comes from the U.S. Department of the Treasury about qualified disability expenses and what they are and what that means. This is a subjective decision that you, the account owner, and the authorized individual providing support, make your decisions about. And this is where I recommend, think about this, ask yourself these questions. The list to the left is clear, but it's not exhaustive. It can include your expenses, your qualified disability expenses, can include expenses that maintain or improve health, independence, or quality of life. I see that a question that's very often asked that just came across the transom about, well, what about a trip? Ask yourself, does taking that trip improve my quality of life as an account owner? As an authorized individual, does it improve the account owner's quality of life? Increase his independence? If he or she needs support to go on that trip, to have that independence, that is the kind of expense that would be covered, would be part of a qualified disability expense. The Treasury Department says, construe this broadly to include basic living expenses, rent, trash removal, repairs to the home, making your home accessible, even purchasing furniture. Do those things, are they basic to your lifestyle, and do they improve your health, independence, and quality of life? The expenses aren't limited to medically necessary expenses or expenses that provide no benefit to others in addition to the account owner. In other words, if we're talking about a hypothetical trip, if I'm an account owner who needs to have a companion with me for me to experience the trip, well, it's very likely that the companion is going to get some pleasure out of that trip as well. This is very clear from the Department of Treasury that it's not limited to those expenses that provide no benefit to others. Finally, it can include COVID-19 expenses, food and grocery delivery, personal protective wear, sheltering in place expenses, and telemedicine expenses. Next slide. How can you decide which options are right for you? Goes back to the investment slides and the checking account slides and the thinking about contributions and how I'm going to spend the money. Ask yourself these questions and refer to some documents that we'll lay out. Number one, what qualified disability expenses do I want to save for? Number two, when will I need the money? Number three, what is risk? This says what is the risk, but it really should say what is risk. I need to understand what that means if I'm thinking about investing. And finally, what is my risk tolerance? The what type of investor sheet, which Michael's sharing, is available to you to learn. Recommend that if you work with somebody who is an expert in finance or a financial advisor, talk with that advisor. And then most importantly, read the plan disclosure documents. Make sure you have your cup of coffee in front of you. There's a lot of language in them. Take it a little at a time, but it's really important that you familiarize yourself with all of the underlying funds, the fees associated with investing, and so forth. Next slide. There are account fees. What are they? There is an annual asset-based fee on the account ranging from 0.34% to 0.37%. What does that mean? Those represent something called basis points. They are a percentage on the assets that an account owner has in an investment option. an example of, how to get that into our heads about, well, what does that mean in terms of dollars and cents? Because we pretty much operate in that way day to day. If you have, this is hypothetical, but if you have $1,000 this year in, let's say, the aggressive option, which has a 37 basis point fee, you'll pay approximately $3.70 on that investment for having your money invested in that underlying fund. There is also a quarterly account maintenance fee. It is $15 for paper delivery each quarter, or $11.25 for e-delivery, highly recommended. There is a checking account fee, which is easy to waive. It is $2 a month, but if you get e-delivery of your statements, or you keep your average balances over $250, you will not be charged that monthly checking account fee. I saw a very interesting statistic with our program manager last week that showed that the vast majority of Illinois Able checking account owners have their monthly fee waived, well over, I believe, 80%. But what's interesting is that it hasn't been waived because they're getting e-delivery of their statements. It's been waived because they're keeping an average balance of over $250. Again, I recommend, especially in this time when we're working from home, we're not able to go into, and you can't go into a Fifth Third bricks and mortar branch anyway to manage your Illinois Able account. I recommend getting your statements e-delivered. That way, if your account balance goes below $250, you're not charged that $2 monthly fee. And then finally, you can purchase paper checks for $6. Next slide. I'm going to speed up here. Okay, to open an Illinois Able account, recommended, go online to Illinois, ILLINOISABLE.com, IllinoisAble.com. I want to give you just a heads up, everybody. We are switching over to a new website sometime this week. If you go to IllinoisAble.com right now, it's going to take you to an information site that is hosted by us at the Illinois Treasurer's Office, and then you can link on to the enrollment site. So just be aware of that. You can download an application, print it and complete it and mail it to IllAble, I-L-A-B-L-E, capital P, capital O, Box 219420, Kansas City, Missouri, 64121, or call customer service at 888-609-3683, Monday through Friday. And I just noticed that we have the P.O. Box listed there once again. It should actually say 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. It's good to go through this deck because it's the first time we've used it, and I'm seeing a few errors. My apologies. Next slide. Illinois Able and COVID preparedness. Just to keep you informed, there's an image here. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to describe the other image. My apologies. And I'm so proud of our Illinois Able account owners who are the face of Able. The previous slide had a picture of a young adult sitting at her desk at her office on her cell phone and looking out a window. She is also an Able account owner. Thank you for putting that back. And she recently bought a home, put a down payment on a home with her Illinois Able funds, and is using the funds to help make her home accessible. Next slide. COVID preparedness. We have a notice on our enrollment site. We are all working from home. ISTO stands for Illinois State Treasurer's Office. Along with the program manager, the company's name is Ascensus. Not important to you. Just know that account processing, customer service, phone calls, receiving your mail, working with our program online continues uninterrupted. Next slide. Want to invite all of you to join our Access Able monthly newsletter. You'll see an image here of Access Able with images of a young adult with a disability on a computer laptop, a young child with Down syndrome and her mom, or perhaps her sister, and the hands of a child using Braille. Access Able is news and updates from the Illinois State Treasurer's Able program. That's us. That's me and Rosemary, our program manager. Each month, we write to you to share with you tips, information, developments in Able. It's such a young program. There's always a lot going on. The newsletter currently has almost 5,000 subscribers, all organically grown by you, our disability community, signing up to get more information and learn about Able. We'll provide you monthly updates. We will not share your email address or the list with anybody else. And you can sign up via email by sending an email to able@illinoistreasurer.gov, ABLE at ILLINOISTREASURER.gov. Next slide. This is one of our faces of Abel. Love this guy. His name's Alex. He lives in Southern Illinois. He's an account owner. So proud. What you're seeing is a disclaimer slide. It's got a lot of language in it. I'm not going to read it, so we can do some Q&A, but do want to say thank you and hope that you will read the disclaimer slide whatever way you choose after the presentation is over. Thank you, and I'm ready for questions.
JJ, before we go on to questions, Katie, if you could again post the polling questions. We just wanted to see if people have learned more information about Able as a result of this presentation today.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So question number 1 is, how much do you know about what an Able account is? Question 2, do you know how to open an Able account? Question 3, do you know what funds in an Able account can be used for? And the answers to each question are, I don't know anything about this, I know a little about this, and I know a lot about this. Thank you, Katie. Okay, so JJ, let's move on to the Q&A that came in during your presentation. So one person asked, do I have to invest my funds within an Able account?
I think you're asking, do I have to choose one of those investment options? No, you do not. You can choose to put all of the contributions into the checking account option. You can open that checking account option when you go through the process of enrolling. You do not have to put the funds into the investment options. Likewise, you do not have to open the checking account option if you so choose. You can put all of your contributions into one or all of the investment options.
Great. And then a question came in regarding the waiver of fees if an account balance is $250 or more. Does that have to be saved in the FDIC insured portion, or could those funds be in the investment portion as well?
That's a good question. I think what you're asking is on what do I get charged fees for, I think. Is it possible to go back to that slide? I don't know if that's asking too much, but the fees apply to, so you're going to pay, thank you. If you are invested in any of those investment options, the account owner is going to be charged, and the funds will be deducted from the Illinois Able account. The account owner will be charged those asset-based fees. If you don't have any money in the investment options, you won't be charged the asset-based fees. The quarterly account maintenance fee, it does not matter where your funds are contributed, whether they're in the checking account, the investment account, or all of the accounts. Account owners are charged the quarterly account maintenance fee. That is something that we at Illinois Able are working to lower, to make sure all of our fees get lower. The more enrollment, the greater the enrollment, the more quickly fees across the nation will go down on Able accounts. The Illinois Able plan is about at the middle of the road in terms of overall cost of owning the account. But so if you have the checking account, you're still going to pay the quarterly account maintenance fee. The next piece, which goes directly to your question, what about that $2 monthly fee that Fifth Third Bank charges? That is waived as long as you have 250 or more in your account or you have e-delivery. And that too will be taken out of the checking account if you are paying it. But really there's no reason to pay it if you're able to get e-delivery of your statements. Hope that answers the question.
JJ. That's terrific. We have an Abel account owner who would like a debit card for their account. What steps do they need to take to receive a debit card?
When you enroll in the Illinois Able plan, you will go through and you select the checking account option. You will then need to go to the Fifth Third 53.com website, and it's not in this deck, but you'll go through a process of setting up that checking account and requesting the debit card. Now, Lori and everybody on the call, I just said that, and I'm beginning to wonder if I did it correctly. So here's what I recommend. When you go through the enrollment process, if you know you want the debit account feature, the best thing to do is to call that customer service number that's on the contact slide. They're super helpful. They'll walk you through it. And that's the reason for the disclaimer slide at the end of this, because I don't want to give you misinformation. I believe what I described is correct, but it may not be. Sorry about that. It's easy to do, put it that way, and there are other people who are more expert than I am who will give you the right answers.
Great. And then, JJ, if someone were to move to another state, would they need to change their Illinois Able plan to that new state?
Great question. No, they do not have to. You can own an Illinois Able account no matter where you live. However, it's always recommended that you look at the Able plan in your own state first. So if you move to another state, you may find that if you become a taxpayer there are incentives to roll your account over to that state's plan. So you'll want to take a look at that. Again, if you live in Illinois and you are a taxpayer in Illinois, for example, I'm a taxpayer in Illinois. I made contributions last year to a friend's Able account, and I, as an Illinois taxpayer, he is an Illinois Able account owner. I was able to take a state income tax deduction for making a contribution to that account. But let's say you're a parent of an adult who lives here, you live here, but you have an Ohio stable account. Well, if you make a contribution to your child's stable account or Virginia Able account or any other state's Able plan, you cannot take that tax deduction from your Illinois state income taxes. So there's a real benefit if you're a resident here to having your Illinois Able account here, your Able account with Illinois.
Great. JJ, I would like to take the liberty to answer several questions that came in. So sure. Individuals who receive SSI are the only individuals who need to monitor their Able account balance to ensure it does not go over $100,000, because if the Able savings account balance goes over $100,000, those additional monies would count towards the resource limit for that SSI beneficiary. And then, JJ, I wanted to move on to just one more question. Many people are asking, maybe they have a 529 college account that has more than $15,000 in it, maybe an inheritance more than $15,000, or they would like to move their special needs trust to an Able account, but the balance is more than $15,000. Are there special circumstances where a person can contribute more than $15,000 into that Able account, not counting the Able to Work Act allowing amendment allowing individuals who work and do not have an employer-sponsored retirement account to save up to an additional $12,490 from their earnings in an ABLE account in a calendar year. JJ?
Unfortunately, the answer is no. You cannot put more than the $15,000 aggregate amount per year in an ABLE account. So if you, for example, have $30,000 in a 529 college savings account, you would need to put that into the Illinois ABLE account or any ABLE account over a period of 2 years, assuming that no other contributions go into the account. It's something that the states are working at the federal level to change the legislation to allow things like an inheritance, a lump sum payment, an insurance settlement, a rollover to go into an ABLE account and be accepted. But currently, the $15,000 cap prevents you from doing that.
Thank you, JJ. Katie, if we could move forward with our slides. So we wanted to share with you, National Disability Institute has prepared a new website to address concerns related to COVID-19, and all information posted at that website is for people who have a disability and or a chronic health condition. So we invite you to visit nationaldisabilityinstitute.org/financial-resilience-center. So you'll be able to find that if you go to National Disability Institute, and that will come up on the home page. We welcome you to take a look. Okay, next slide. We wish to give you notice that there is an additional webinar upcoming July 23rd at 10 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock Eastern Time, and that title is Credit Matters. And please join National Disability Institute to learn about the importance of credit and a personal credit profile for individuals who have disabilities. Learn ways that credit profiles are used in everyday life. This webinar will identify what makes up a credit score and how good credit scores can save an individual money. So to register, the link is posted here. Next slide. Any questions that were not answered, or as questions come to mind, please reach out to us at ask@ndi-inc.org, and we will be back to you within a day or two to answer further questions. Next slide. Again, we wish to thank the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities for allowing today's presentation, and we wish to thank JJ Hanley and Illinois ABLE for helping families to learn more about ABLE accounts and how that is a protected savings opportunity that can allow a person to save for their future and to cover qualified disability expenses that arise for people. I see we have a couple more minutes here. JJ, if I could ask you another question. We understand that qualified disability expenses is not a concrete list, that it may vary from one individual to another based upon the person's disability condition. Can you respond to that a little bit?
I think that's a good way to put it. It goes back to these accounts being, I use the word subjective, but I think the questioner said, it varies depending upon the needs of the individual. And so it's freeing in that way. You're not restricted to getting permission to use the fund, to doing accountings of how you use the fund. You decide, what are the expenses that I have, an account owner or my loved one has, or could have? What are the things that we could use the funds for that would improve and enhance quality of life, but until Abel, we weren't able to save for, and he wasn't or she wasn't able to save for because of that cap. And so now you can begin to think about, what are the things that improve my quality of life? What are the things that give me greater independence? And so I think that is, you're absolutely right. It's a subjective judgment call. You know, some folks have said, well, what happens, you know, how am I going to be measured on this? The possibility is that the IRS audits the account, just as it may come in and audit other, your taxes. And at that time, that's when, if you're not already on receiving benefits, that you have that letter to pull out of your file cabinet. You don't ever send that letter that describes the condition to the Illinois Able program. It just needs to be there if the IRS audits. And to date, we don't know of any audits being conducted. So I hope that helps.
Great. And someone just asked, JJ, can I use my Able account to purchase a birthday gift for someone?
Yeah, I think that's a very, that's an interesting question, and I think folks will have differing opinions on that. The way that I would answer it is to say, is the expense, is the thing that you're using the funds for, the account owner using the funds for, improving, increasing the individual's independence, quality of life? I think you have to ask yourself that question. Only you, the account owner, and supporters can decide.
Great. I think perhaps to address that, a best practice might be to use other funding, other income that has not been deposited into Able to make a purchase of a gift for another individual. And JJ, we have many case managers on today's webinar. They're asking if brochures for Illinois Able are available.
Oh my goodness me, they are. There are printed brochures. I think the best thing to do is to email Rosemary Laudani, our program manager, whose email address is at the end of the deck, and let her know how, the best thing to do during times of COVID is to ask her to send you the digital copy of our brochures and our information that you can then distribute. We do have paper copies. We are not yet back into our physical office space, so I'm not sure that we can go in to get them to mail them to you, but we can certainly check on that. If you shoot us an email, let us know how many you need. We can try to work with you on that. Thank you.
And Lori, this is Michael and JJ, just to share, as we're getting ready to close up at the top of the hour. Again, if you send the email to ask@ndi-inc.org, we will also make sure you get Rosemary's email. But in the follow-up email, we will make sure that the what type of investor, the PDF of the brochure is also attached and will be emailed out to the attendees with the recording as well as the slides.
Michael, sorry, this is JJ, and sorry about that. I appreciate that. That's definitely the way to do it. May I just also mention, Michael, that I'll send to you, we have a really great FAQs about economic impact payments, which we weren't able to talk about today, but we have an FAQs that is sponsored by Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities, the Illinois ARC, and the Illinois Association of Rehabilitation Facilities, and Illinois Able, to give you some of the facts about those economic impact payments and Illinois Able accounts. And we can also send to you a simple list of FAQs about Illinois Able accounts. I'll make sure that you get that to distribute. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, JJ. And again, thank you to Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.